Hello and welcome to Woodwork by Chan. Today I'm going to be showing you a video on how I created a wine rack that holds 2 bottles and 4 glasses and looks like this. So without further ado, let's get going. So first thing I need to do is cut all my oak planks down to the right dimensions and length. It would be easier if I had a miter saw or even a chop saw or even a bandsaw. But without it, use a handsaw with a miter block, which is a little tough on the fingers. But you get used to it after a while. Once I have the pieces cut down, I use my marking gauge and I find the center line of the 2 top pieces that will be holding the wine glasses. Now you want to make sure it's in the center, so a good trick is to use the marking guide on both sides, from both sides of the wood, and then where it meets the middle, you draw your line. Once I have my middle line, I find 2 holes. I drill those 2 holes. This is where the wine glass is actually going to hang from. Once I have those holes drilled out, I take it over to the bandsaw and I cut out the access points. So I simply repeat that for both pieces at the top, and then once I've done that, I've decided to attach all my 4 sides with dovetails, and I'm using my homemade dovetail guide. You can find a description to the video of how I made that. And this is fun for me because I'm new to dovetailing, and the more practice I get, the better I'll get at it. It made the video or made the work a little longer because I'm learning how to do it as I go, and I've made quite a few mistakes that I decided not to put into the final video. Basically, I had to recut the pieces of wood about 3 times because I cut the wrong part of the tail off or the pins off. So it's just a lot of extra work for what you get. Now, I probably should have attached the camera to a different bench than the bench that I was actually using to cut, because it made the video very shaky, but considers a lesson learned, and I won't do that next time. So once the dovetails are roughly cut out with the saw, then you have to use the chisel and a mallet to try and pare it down so that all my edges are a perfect 90 degrees and they're clean cuts because the saw never quite gives it perfect corners. So this is a lot of tedious work with the hammer and the chisel to try and get it down to nice corners. And once I do get that, I have to mark off the pins on the other pieces of wood so that they will fit into each other in a nice dovetail. Again, I'm using my homemade guide to try and cut the pin portion of the dovetail. This is actually quite a really cool guide, so I hope you do check out the video that I'm attaching in the description for how I made that guide, because it makes cutting dovetails super, super easy if you remember not to cut away the part that you need, and unlike I did, so that you don't have to do it 3 times. Once again, once the pins have been cut out by the saw, then it's back to mallet and chisel to square off them so that they fit nicely in with the dovetails that you cut into the other pieces. This again is the longest part, but once you have it down, you want to make sure that both the tail and the pin and the dovetail fit nicely into each other, and requires a lot of just fine tuning. So you test fit, and then you pare it down a little bit more, then you test fit, then you pare it down a little bit more, and then you use a file at the end to try and make sure that the fit is nice and tight. Once I know that my dovetails joint is nice and tight, I'm going to apply a little bit of glue to all the surfaces that are coming into contact with each other, and then I'm going to press them in together. To make sure that my joint actually stays at a 90 degree, I've put these 90 degree homemade clamps onto the corners. I'll put a description for that link in the video as well. And then once I put the clamps on there, I can let it dry overnight. This is what it looks like after it's dried overnight. So I have 90 degrees on 3 corners, and then I can attach the back to it. Now, in order to attach the back, I first measure the bottom to get the width, and then I clamp piece of wood to the top to make sure that the top and the bottom are exact same width, so I know that I have a square box to glue. Once I know the box is perfectly square, where the top and bottom are the same distance apart, then I glue my backing piece. This is the piece that's going to attach the rack to the wall if you choose to mount it onto a wall. And then across the front, about 1 inch off to create a nice little reveal at the bottom, I have a glued piece across the front to keep the wine bottle from falling off the rack when you're mounting it onto the wall. And then for extra security, I mount some screws to the back of that, connecting the mounting piece to the rack itself. I drill holes and I countersink the holes to make sure the screws don't pop out. And then I glue on the back bottom piece so that the wine bottles don't fall out the bottom. And it also doesn't, it keeps it nice and flush to the wall, the top and bottom, so that it doesn't teeter. Once the glue has dried, I take the entire rack over to the belt sander and flush off all my joints so that I don't have any joints that are out of place. This is an easy, fast way to do it. Once I've flushed all the joints, I take it over to the bandsaw and I cut off all the sharp corners from the top of the rack where the glasses will be held, as well as the backing piece, the mounting piece. You don't want to have square pieces there. And then I take it back over to the belt center and I round off those corners that I've just cut off so it's a nice circular look. And then it's a lot of hand sanding with the sandpaper and a sanding block to make sure that every single piece or every single spot on that is nice and smooth. Last manufacturing step is using the router to round off all the corners, including where the glasses will be held. This makes it nicer to the touch. And then once that is done, again, back to hand sanding to get rid of all the machine marks that are left by the router. The very, very last step after all the sanding has been done, which I did not capture on film, is to put on a couple coats of rub-on polyurethane. This actually ended up with 3 coats of it so that it was nice and shiny with a hand sanding in between each coat to make sure that it was smooth before the application of the next coat. So this is the final product, and I love the classic look. It's not too modern, but it's modern enough. So I hope you enjoyed the video today, and I'll see you next time on the next build.